Ganu Island 1612. The most anticipated jewel in Sam. History: Sasaki Kojiro arrived at dawn. Pristine robes, blade polished to mirror. Finish technique perfected through 10,000 hours of flawless preparation. Miyamoto Musashi arrived 3 hours late. Unwashed, half-drunk, wielding a wooden sword he'd carved from a botter during the trip. The duel lasted seconds. Kojiro died. Musashi walked away. Why? Because Kojiro spent his life perfecting the plan. Musashi spent his life acting in the moment. Here's what nobody tells you: the samurai who obsessed over perfect preparation often died. The ones who started messy and corrected in motion became legends. You're perfect routine, planned to the minute, optimized to perfection, might be the exact thing preventing you from ever actually starting. This is the reverse lesson. The teaching hidden in plain sight. Are you ready to stop planning and finally begin? Chapter 1: The Awakening, the woman who couldn't start. Northern Mountains. Winter 1610. 2 years before the famous duel, Akane was 23 and paralyzed by perfection, not physically paralyzed, mentally trapped in an endless loop of preparation that never became action. She'd arrived at the mountain village 6 months earlier with grand ambitions: train in the warrior arts, achieve mastery, honor her dead father's legacy. But 6 months later, she still hadn't truly begun. Her small hut was covered in papers. Optimal daily routine version 7, training schedule, final draft, meditation, progression plan, sword form mastery, timeline, nutrition and recovery, protocols, perfect plans, beautiful schedules, elaborate preparations, 0 execution. Every Monday she'd wake with renewed commitment. This week I truly begin. Monday morning, I should plan one more day to ensure everything's perfect. Tuesday, I need to research the best training methods first. Wednesday, let me organize all my materials before starting. Thursday, perhaps I should visit the dojo first, observe their routine. Friday, this week wasn't ideal timing. I'll start fresh on Monday. Cycle repeated. 6 months gone, still planning, never training. Other villagers, less educated, less prepared, train daily, progress steadily. While on, the educated warrior's daughter remained frozen in her perfect plans. The village elder, Master Tanaka, noticed, called her to his home. You've been here 6 months, what have you learned? Akane pulled out her elaborate plans. I've created comprehensive training protocols based on the teachings of what can you do. Silence. Can you defend yourself? Not yet, but once I complete my preparation phase. So after 6 months, you're exactly where you started, except now you have beautiful plans to show for your paralysis. Words cut deep. I'm not paralyzed, I'm being thorough. Preparation prevents failure. No girl, preparation becomes the failure when it replaces action. There's someone you should meet. Chapter 2: The Principal, the hermit who failed. The next day, Master Tanaka led Akane up the mountain to a small cave dwelling. Inside, an old man, maybe 60, scarred face, missing 2 fingers on his left hand. This is Akiro, once a promising samurai, now a hermit. Teach you what the dojo masters won't. Akiro studied Akane with sharp eyes. You're the planning girl, the one with all the papers. I'm preparing to your hiding, using preparation as armor against the vulnerability of beginning. Akane bristled. I'm being strategic. You're being afraid. He gestured to his scars, his missing fingers. You see, these, each one came from starting before I was ready. Each one taught me more than any plan ever could. He sat. Akane sat across from him, confused and defensive. Let me tell you why I failed. As a samurai, it's not what you think. Ichiro's story. At 20, I was considered gifted, fast, strong, intelligent. My master said I'd be legendary if I applied myself correctly, so I did. I studied every text, memorized every form, planned every training session. My technique became flawless and controlled. Practice. At 25, I was invited to my first real duel, a minor dispute. Low stakes. I spent 3 months preparing, perfecting my strategy, visualizing every possibility. The duel lasted 8 seconds. I froze. My opponent, a mediocre fighter with terrible form, Simply acted, his messy imperfect. Strike found me before my perfect plan. Could execute, I survived barely, but something broke in me, I spent the next 5 years preparing for the next opportunity. It never came because I never allowed it to come. Perfect preparation became my prison. Forward, voice intense, you know what I learned in this cave, spending 15 years watching actual warriors pass through these mountains. The ones who succeed aren't the most prepared, they're the ones who start anyway and correct in motion. Akane wanted to argue but couldn't because she saw herself in his story. What do I do? You do what I'll teach you, what I wish someone had taught me 30 years ago. He stood, walked to the cave entrance, snow falling outside. Starting tomorrow you'll train with me for 1 winter, 3 months, but not the way you think. You'll learn Shuchu Ryoku, concentrated power, not through planning, through immediate imperfect action. His voice took on a quality that made Akane feel he was speaking beyond just her. This teaching has echoed through warrior lineages, though few speak of it openly because it contradicts the romantic idea of the perfectly prepared master. The truth: real warriors learn by doing, failing, adjusting, not by planning until conditions are perfect. In your time, in times beyond, others suffer your same paralysis, spending weeks designing routines they never start, reading books about discipline they never practice, waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives. At presence in purpose, we keep this reverse teaching alive, not the comfortable message of plan perfectly, the uncomfortable truth of begin imperfectly. Those who discover this, who learn to act before ready, fail forward, correct in motion, they find what you seek, not perfect execution from day one, real progress from day one. If this describes you, if you've spent months planning the life you'll live when ready, join us, not to create better plans, to destroy the planning addiction and finally begin. Because the warrior's path isn't perfected in theory, it's forged in action, and action requires starting before you feel prepared. Akane felt something shift, like a locked door opening. When do we start? Now, but I haven't exactly now. Chapter 3: The Test. Winter training begins. Day 1, no preparation allowed. Stand up, Akiro commanded. Akane stood. Now strike me, but I don't know the proper form. Strike me anyway, I should at least understand the basic. Strike me. Akane swung awkwardly. Ichiro stepped aside easily. Terrible form. Weak power, poor balance. Good, now do it again. Shouldn't I learn the correct technique first? You'll learn by doing it wrong repeatedly until your body figures out better. Strike again. She struck. He corrected one thing, wider stance. Strike again. Another correction. Rotate hips. Strike again. Look at target, not sword. 20 strikes. Each one corrected, each one slightly better than the last. After 20 minutes, Akane was exhausted, and something remarkable had happened. Her strike, while still amateur, was significantly better than her first attempt. What just happened? She asked. You learned more in 20 minutes of messy action than 6 months of perfect planning. This is Mujok and unconditional action. You act without prerequisites. Day 3, the resistance. Akane's mind rebelled. After training, she tried to create a training plan to optimize the process. Ikiro found her papers, threw them in the fire. No, but if I document what's working, you're falling back into the trap. Planning as procrastination, analysis as avoidance. I'm trying to be strategic, you're trying to feel in control. Control is an illusion. Progress is messy. He made her a rule. No planning beyond the current day, no analysis beyond immediate adjustment. Just show up, act correct. Week 2, the pattern breaks. By week 2, something unexpected happened. Akane's sword work, developed through chaotic daily practice, with constant micro-corrections, was progressing faster than students at the formal dojo who'd spent months learning proper form before being allowed to practice. Why? Because she was getting immediate feedback, trying, failing, adjusting, trying again. Hundreds of iterations per session. Dojo students spent weeks perfecting their stance before ever swinging a sword. By the time they started actual practice, they were months behind in Real experience, perfect preparation had cost them progress. Chapter 4, Warrior. Psychology, why perfect planning kills. Action Month 2, the teaching deepens. One evening, Ichiro explained the psychology, the planning trap. Disguised as diligence, your brain fears vulnerability, starting something you might fail. It feels dangerous, so it offers a compromise, plan more than you'll be ready, but ready never comes. Because the brain's real goal isn't preparation, it's avoidance. Every day you spend planning is a day you avoid the discomfort of being a beginner, of being bad at something, of risking failure. Planning feels productive, it's not. It's sophisticated procrastination. The perfectionist paradox. Perfectionists like you think I'll start when conditions are perfect, but perfection is learned through imperfection. You become precise through being imprecise and correcting, skilled through being unskilled and improving, strong through being weak and training. Waiting until you're perfect before starting means never starting, because perfect is impossible without starting. The Kojiro principle. Let me tell you about Sasaki Kojiro, history. Remember his duel with Musashi in 2 years. Kojiro is the perfect planner. His technique flawless, his preparation meticulous, his blade perfection itself. Musashi chaotic, impulsive, often appears unprepared, but here's what nobody sees. Musashi starts immediately and corrects in motion. He's fought 60 duels, lost none, not because he prepared perfectly, because he acted imperfectly and adjusted rapidly. Kojiro will spend 2 more years perfecting his already perfect technique. Musashi will spend 2 years fighting, learning, evolving through messy action. When they meet, technique won't decide the outcome, adaptability will, and adaptability only comes from repeated imperfect action. Modern neuroscience will prove this. Centuries from now, they'll understand the brain learns through iteration, not imagination. You can visualize a movement 1,000 times, it builds nothing, but do it once, even poorly, and neural pathways form. Do it again with slight correction. Pathways strengthened by the 100th repetition. Your body knows things your mind never could have planned. This is why children learn so fast. They don't plan, they attempt, fail, adjust, iterate rapidly. No shame, no perfectionism, just action and correction. The Stoic understanding. The ancient Stoics knew the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Your imperfection isn't the problem preventing progress. Working through imperfection is the progress. Every bad swing teaches you good swings. Every failed attempt teaches you successful attempts, but only if you take the bad swing, only if you make the failed attempt. Akane felt the teaching crystallizing, so perfection isn't the goal, no, progress is the goal, and progress requires starting before your perfect. Action creates clarity, clarity creates improvement, improvement creates skill. Planning tries to create clarity before action, it's backward, the cart before the horse. Chapter 5, the first transformation, the festival challenge. Month 3, unexpected test. Traveling warrior came through the village, arrogant, skilled, challenged the local practitioners to friendly duels. He defeated everyone easily, including the formal dojo students with their perfect technique. Akiro looked at Akane. Your turn, master. I've only trained 3 months and you've practiced more real combat than they have in 3 years. Go. Akane faced the warrior. Kenta, perhaps 30, clearly experienced. Old Akane would have frozen. I'm not ready, I need more preparation. New Akane, she simply began. Kento attack with sophisticated technique. Akane response was messy, but she responded. Adjusted, moved. The duel lasted longer than anyone expected. Akane lost, but barely, and more importantly, she hadn't frozen. She'd adapted in real time, trying things, abandoning what didn't work, exploiting what did. Kent bowed respectfully. You're the most dangerous opponent I've faced here, but I lost. You lost this time, but you learned faster than anyone I've seen. In 6 months, I wouldn't bet against you. After Kiro explained the dojo, students prepared for years before being allowed to spar. When they finally faced a real opponent, their practiced forms Crumbled because reality doesn't follow. The plan, you train 3 months but 3 months of chaotic reality, you've been adapting from day one, your foundation is mess, but mess is what reality is. Perfect technique breaks against chaos. Adaptive skill flows through it, but surviving a friendly duel was one thing. What happened next would test whether Akane had truly learned to embrace imperfect action or if she'd retreat back to the safety of planning. When stakes became real, Chapter 6 Deep Training Arc, the Avalanche Method. Final month, advanced practice, Ikiro introduced a new training philosophy. The avalanche method, you know why. Avalanches are so powerful, they start small, a single snowball, but once in motion they accumulate mass, momentum, power. This is how real discipline works. Not through perfect planning that never starts, through imperfect action that gains momentum, the daily practice. Every morning Akane had one rule: start training within 5 minutes of waking. No conditions didn't matter if she felt good or bad, ready or unprepared, motivated or resistant. Wake up, start training. 5 minutes maximum between. But what if I'm tired? Train tired. What if I'm sore? Train sore. What if I don't feel mentally clear? Train unclear. Clarity comes from motion, not before it. Removing prerequisites, Ikiro made her remove every excuse her brain generated. I need to eat first. No. Train first. I should stretch properly. Stretch while training. Let me check conditions outside. Conditions don't matter. Maybe I should review yesterday's lessons. Just begin. Every condition removed, every prerequisite eliminated. Result: within a week, training became automatic, not because it was easy, because the gap between intention and action disappeared. The meditation insight. During evening meditation, something profound occurred. Akane's mind, usually generating elaborate plans, suddenly quieted. That stillness, understanding arose. This practice, this immediate action, without prerequisite. Warriors across time have struggled with this. They paralysis of perfectionism, they addiction to planning, at presence and purpose. We teach what formal schools often miss: not how to create better plans, how to break the planning addiction entirely. The reverse method: begin before ready, fail forward, correct in motion. Trust that action creates clarity, not the other way around. If you're trapped in endless preparation, researching optimal routines, reading about discipline, planning the perfect start, join us not for another planning system, for practice in starting anyway, because every week spent planning is a week of progress lost, and the warrior's path doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It begins when you begin. Imperfect, messy, real. The thought passed, but its truth remained. The evolution. By month 3, Akane noticed something remarkable. Her practice, which began chaotic and formless, had naturally evolved into a consistent routine, not planned. Emerged through daily action. Her body figured out what worked. Natural rhythms developed, effective sequences revealed themselves. She had a routine now, but one built from reality, not imagination. Battle tested, not theoretically optimized. This, Ikiro explained, is the secret the perfectionist never discovers. Structure emerges from action. You can't plan your way to the right routine, you must do your way to it. Start messy, stay consistent, let effectiveness emerge naturally through feedback. Chapter 7 The Final Confrontation. The bandits. Spring arrives, real danger. 3 bandits came to the village demanding food, supplies, threatening violence. The dojo students, with their years of perfect training, hesitated. We should plan our approach, coordinate our strategy. The bandits grew more aggressive. Akane didn't plan. She simply stepped forward. Leave now. The leader laughed, drew his blade. What happened next was pure Shuchu Ryoku. Concentrated action without hesitation. Akane moved immediately, not perfectly, not with flawless technique, but decisively. Her strike came fast, unexpected. The leader barely parried. She didn't stop to assess, didn't pause to plan the next move, just continued. Flowing, adapting, pressing. The leader, despite superior skill, found himself defensive. This girl didn't fight like a trained warrior, she fought like someone who'd learned to act without thinking. Within 2 minutes he was disarmed, his companions fled, the village master approached on after remarkable 3 months of training and you succeeded. Where my 3-year students froze, they froze because they tried to recall their perfect technique. I just acted and adjusted. Ikiro smiled from the crowd. The lesson had taken root. Final reveal. The warrior truth. Begin before you're ready. Summer 1612. News arrived. Miyamoto Musashi had killed Sasaki Kojiro in their famous duel. The village erupted in discussion. How had Musashi, known for being unprepared and chaotic, defeated Kojiro? The master of perfect technique, Ikiro, gathered everyone including Akane. I'll tell you why Musashi won. It's the lesson Akane learned this winter. Kojiro spent his entire life perfecting his technique, every movement flawless, every strategy optimized. He arrived at that island as close to perfect as a human could be, but he'd also spent his entire life preparing, very little actual fighting, mostly practice. Refinement, perfection. Musashi chaotic mess, but he'd fought 60 real duels. Survived all of them, not through perfect technique, through adaptive action. When Kojiro saw Musashi arrive late, unwashed with a crude weapon, he felt insulted. His perfect preparation meeting chaos, but that chaos was experience, real messy imperfect experience. In the duel, Kojiro executed his perfect technique. Musashi simply responded unpredictably, effectively, immediately. Kojiro died because perfection can adapt to chaos. Musashi lived because adaptation is the skill. He turned to Akane. You arrived here 6 months before winter, paralyzed by planning. What if you'd started immediately? 6 months of messy practice. You'd be 6 months ahead of where you are now. The deepest truth. Here's what the planning addiction costs you: time you never get back. Every week spent preparing the perfect routine is a week of actual practice lost. Every month spent researching optimal methods is a month of experience gone. Every year waiting until you're ready is a year you'll never recover. The path to mastery isn't plan perfectly, execute flawlessly, achieve greatness. The path is start messily, fail frequently, adjust constantly, build skill gradually, master eventually. Perfection is built from imperfection, not before it. Akane understood completely now. Her 6 months of planning had produced nothing. Her 3 months of chaotic action had transformed her, ending the SAM lesson. The student who starts immediately. 2 years later, Akane runs a small training ground. Students come from surrounding villages. A young man, Kao, age 20, approaches with a thick notebook. Master Akane, I've studied your methods. I've created an optimal training plan based on your principles. May I review it with you before starting? Akane looks at the notebook. Detailed, comprehensive, beautifully planned. She closes it without reading. No, but I've spent 3 months. 3 months planning, yes, to ensure I start correctly. You've already failed. 3 months wasted. Kao looks confused, hurt. Akane softens, sits, gestures for him to sit. 2 years ago I was you. Brilliant plans, perfect preparation, zero action. A hermit taught me what formal masters won't say. Planning is often disguised as diligence. Your brain doesn't want better plans. It wants to avoid the vulnerability of being bad at something. She stands, hands up. Practice sword right now. No preparation. Strike that post, but I don't know proper forms. Strike it anyway. Kao swings awkwardly. Terrible. Do it again. He strikes again. Better. Again. After 10 strikes his form has visibly improved. What just happened? He asks. You learned more in 2 minutes of messy action than 3 months of perfect planning. She walks to the training area. This teaching, this reverse method continues here. Not comfortable, not what other schools teach, but real at presence in purpose. We practice what others only preach. Begin before ready. Fail forward, correct in motion, trust that clarity comes from action, not before it. Every week we teach warriors to destroy their planning addiction, not to create better systems, to stop hiding behind systems entirely. If you recognize yourself, if you've spent months planning the discipline, you'll practice when ready. Join us, subscribe To this path, not for permission to plan. Better for permission to start worse. Because Musashi's secret wasn't preparation, it was immediate and perfect. Action adjusted through experience, cow. Bo's master, when do I begin? Akane. Points to the training area, you already began 2 minutes ago, now continue, she. Walks away, leaving him with the practice sword. Your 3-month plan is now worth less than 2 minutes of real practice. Remember that the reverse. Lesson for unbreakable discipline, stop. Planning, start training, stop. Researching, start practicing, stop. Preparing, start failing, stop. Optimizing, start doing, begin before you're ready. The readiness comes from beginning. Perfection is built through imperfection. Mastery emerges from mess. Clarity comes from action. This is why Musashi won. This is why Kojiro died. This is how real warriors are made, not through perfect planning, through imperfect action.